Welcome to another episode of the Good Human podcast. In this episode, we're going to go in depth into self-esteem and self-confidence, and where that can lead on a negative level, but where it can also lead on a positive level, and how it massively affects who you are, what you do, what you imagine that you're capable of, how you behave, your relationships, the job that you'll accept for yourself, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty big subject, and we'll try and do our best to get into it and make it more understandable. Before we go on, don't forget that we have members only content available via goodhuman.co.uk, where you can also access things like our 30-day change your mindset, change your life challenge. That's also available to non-members for a one-off fee. We've got fitness videos, we've got mobility videos, and we've got a load of other stuff in there as well if you fancy taking a look. Anyway, let's get into this. So, when it comes to self-confidence and self-esteem, there's some fundamental things to really start to look at about yourself to see whether or not it's affecting your life in a positive way or a negative way. So the first few things that I would suggest that people really sit in and take stock of is, do you like yourself? And if you don't, why don't you? Now this is going to be multi-layered, so think about it like this. Are you nice about yourself? Do you judge yourself? Do you degrade yourself? Are you self-deprecating? Do you always hit a compliment with a rebuttal? Do you walk into the bathroom in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and feel disgust? Do you immediately think about ways in which you can make yourself more presentable for the world? Do you immediately look for all the negative things about your physicality that you don't like? Or do you actually not look in the mirror at all because you cannot stand seeing yourself? Now, I think there was an estimate of something like 50% of adults won't look at themselves in the mirror.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, I've experienced this a lot because I do a lot of stuff in front of a camera, and I'm very sensitive to if I put the camera on in the gym and do people flinch away? Do they move away from having their photo taken or being in a video? And those are maybe momentary things, but it tells you an awful lot about where that person's at.
Yeah, totally.
If they cannot stand the thought of being seen on video or in a photo. Now, maybe that's a good place for us to start, because I think it's a very common experience. People see a photo of themselves that they don't like on social media, for example, and they're terrified. It creates fear in them, literal fear, and can make them feel sick that photo exists of them. And yet, that is a photo of them. Now, it might be an unflattering picture. That's actually still them. Now, maybe they only looked like that for a momentary second, and that just happened to be when the picture was taken. But people around them see themselves change. So when you think about it, you don't walk around in public like this.
The best angles and the chin out.
Oh, chin out, sorry, I know nothing.
No double chin. But you're right.
You know?
What you have to remember when you're seeing a picture of yourself that's like, oh my god, other people aren't seeing you in that one still image either. They're seeing you move, and they're seeing you laugh, and all your angles, and also you're always your worst critic. Nobody's looking at you going, oh my god.
So here, I think that is it. So why are you your worst critic? Do you ever do it?
Do you know? Not anymore. I used to. And see, when I see myself now, we went to a competition and there was photos taken, and my belly was out because I was breathing really hard, and I just looked and I kind of just laughed, and I was like, oh well. But see, a few years ago, that would have killed me. I would have been emailing the company delete those now.
Yeah.
And I get it because my little sisters are like that, my friends are like that, you can't post this, you can't post that. And you're looking at the picture and you think, oh, but you look so lovely, like you look fine. But to them, they just see all the flaws.
So what do you think it is that when somebody sees that picture, so when your sisters or your old self saw one of those pictures, why did you think it was so important that that picture not exist?
The lack of self-acceptance that you are just human, that you have a double chin and that you had rolls in the picture, or your arms looked flabby, and you thinking that you need to look perfect. I can say now, and why it's changed, is because I just accept myself now. There's days where I look good, or there's angles where I look great, and there's angles where I also look awful, but I also know that's true of everybody. I am not the exception to that. Even models, catwalk models, will have pictures taken where they look less than amazing. And I think for that change to happen, one, my self-esteem's probably improved over the years as well. But also two, that self-acceptance, and I think that goes hand in hand with your self-esteem. Self-esteem isn't you look amazing and that's why you've got great self-esteem. It's like just an acceptance of yourself, I believe.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think oddly though, it sort of is that you're like, I look amazing, but it's not in the way that people think.
Yes.
So when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, damn, you look alright. I'm not big on the, wow, you're amazing. I'm not really big on that kind of, but I'm like, yeah. But it's not that, it's not an arrogance thing. It's not a fake thing. It's not an egotistical thing where I'm trying to use how I look to make a stake in the world or to one up other people, or it's that I'll look at myself, and it's not even a, you know, what can my body do sort of stuff. It's nothing to do with that. It's the combination of looking at myself and going, I like who I am, and this physicality is also who I am. And
yes.
So it's not a arrogance thing. It's not me flouncing around, you know. Not that would be a problem if people want to be like that. I mean, I've no, you know, it's fine. It's that I like me, and my physical self is also me.
Yes. Yes. I can understand that.
Now, I think it's a massive jump for people. And I think, so this is not, I don't just wake up one morning like that. A little bit of me has always been like that. I was never pained by thinking I had to look like other people, or thinking that if I didn't look a certain way, then the world would reject me, which I know that other people do experience this very, very strongly. I think I understand it. I think I've experienced it on minor levels, but I've not experienced it as an overwhelming feeling in life. And I think when people look at themselves in the mirror, or they don't look at themselves in the mirror, they won't look at themselves in the mirror, what are they avoiding?
Yes. I believe when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you are making judgments about yourself, God, I look awful today, I look like such a pig, I've eaten too much, you are placing your value in that, and you believe that that's a reflection of you as a person, because you know on the days that you wake up and you look in the mirror and it's, you like what you see, you feel good, so you're using what you're seeing in the mirror as a statement of like who you are. And I think when people lack self-esteem or they don't like who they are, they're so influenced by what they see in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how you can get people with really good self-esteem can look in the mirror. Maybe they ate too much the night before, they've got a wee bloated belly, but it doesn't affect how they feel about themselves. And you can just laugh off, like, oh well, move on. I think that's the key difference there, because it's not really to do with how you look, and it shouldn't be based, and we've talked about this in other podcast episodes. When you're looking in the mirror, you're basing your value on what you see rather than in other things.
So I think I've had a natural ability to question, like, why, if I think a certain way, would I want to do that to myself? So on those times where I might have had like a negative viewpoint of how I looked, there's quite a quick rebuttal from myself that goes, well, that's not very helpful.
Yeah.
All that serves to do is now make me feel sad, or make me feel negative, or make me feel down. Now, I'm a very logical person, and that does serve me in a lot of ways. And so I think that everyone can do this, but they need to know to do it. And that is to identify those negative moments. So when they won't look at themselves in the mirror, they could start there because it's a very tangible, real thing to do. It's an actionable task. You can step in front of the mirror, look at yourself, and let the negative thoughts happen, identify them, see them, and then look at ways to turn that around. Turn it into, how does that thought serve me? How does it serve me to not think of myself as beautiful? Because it doesn't. There's this like sort of double-edged thing where people automatically go, if you say that you think of yourself as beautiful, they're like, oh, you're so full of yourself. But it's much more subtle than that, and much more self-serving than that, because guess what? It's not about other people. It's about you and how you feel about you. And why would you want to move through your life thinking of yourself as less than, thinking of yourself as unattractive? And I'm not talking about being attractive to the opposite sex to find a partner. I'm talking about feeling radiant and beautiful within yourself as an expression of who you are. Because guess what? That in turn is really attractive to other people. But the most important thing is that it serves you. To really look at yourself and go, God damn, I'm pretty damn good.
Yes.
I am pretty damn good. I like that. I like you looking in the mirror. And sure, it seems silly maybe to do that, to imagine yourself doing that, but I would say challenge yourself to do it.
It's being able to be objective and know that, one, you're not your thoughts. Your thoughts are passing things through your head. You are the observer of your thoughts, and being able to look in the mirror and see that, you know, maybe you're a bit bloated today, but it doesn't need to mean anything. It doesn't need to mean that you're a pig and that you're an awful person. You can be bloated and still be totally okay. You're still great. But that is being objective, being able to take that thought of, I'm bloated today, and not needing to attach a negative connotation to it. And I think that's because we as a society have done that, where we look at perfect people, beautiful people, XYZ, and it's like they're great. We look up to them, they're great people, and it's very strongly your self-worth is placed in how you look, which is what we're trying to undo. But what you've just said about being able to think those things, but then that doesn't serve me. So it doesn't serve me to think that I'm a pig because I ate a takeaway last night. I ate a takeaway, I'm bloated today, but I can just move on. The thought can pass by, and it just is what it is. And that's just a bit of acceptance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once people can really get their heads around paying attention to their thoughts and their feelings and realising that those thoughts and feelings can be changed.
Yes.
You've got to lean into them. Now, I talked to a friend of mine once about grief, and they were scared of it. They were terrified of grief. They were terrified of being sad. And I pointed out to them that grief is an expression of love.
Yes.
How much, it's a testament of how much you loved someone or a pet maybe. You know, that you feel that massive loss of that person or that animal's presence, and you feel sad at that loss. But that sadness isn't something to be scared of. It's actually almost something to cherish, to nurture and to lean into and be okay with. People are so scared of being sad, and maybe that's our societal fault of saying to children, don't cry, don't be sad.
Yeah.
Instead of asking them, like, why they're expressing sadness.
Yeah. And just letting people be sad.
Yeah. And not, why are you crying?
It's our society's thinking that you always have to feel happy and joyous, and you don't. That life's not like that. Life ebbs and flows and dips and undips.
And all emotions are wonderful if you lean into them and you understand them.
They might not feel wonderful.
They are very instructive though.
They are serving a purpose.
Yeah, they are very instructive.
And there's a train of thought in mindfulness, which is like a therapy tool, that the most pain can actually be found when you're trying to avoid feeling the pain or feeling the sadness.
So much.
So you can actually make yourself feel worse by trying to avoid feeling that negative emotion and fighting it. And they say that that's where the worst feeling comes from, is when you just don't allow yourself to feel that emotion that you need to.
So people will then be like, I get angry. I actually remember I worked with some young boys many years ago, and the estate that I was working on was disenfranchised kids who had been they'd found school difficult, they'd maybe been even kind of pushed out of school. I don't mean by the school, but just kind of pushed out of school. They had no place there. They struggled. I remember talking to one of these boys, and he was aware that he had an anger issue. So this kid was like 14, and he had an anger issue where he would just see like red mist, as he put it, and he would be unable to control his words, unable to control his anger, and it would come out in violence. And this expression of anger. Now, I did talk to him, and that it doesn't matter what I said to him at the time, but this is, when you look at anger, what feels like very uncontrollable anger, it's usually an expression of something else. Like, so what is anger in and of itself? Frustration, fear, helplessness.
It could be sadness.
Like a feeling of unpredictability and lack of control. Could be sadness, like anger in and of itself is an expression of something else. So anger, it's perfectly okay to be angry about something, but lean into it and try and discover what it is that's really going on there, because you might find that you're not as angry as you are afraid. You're not as angry as you are frustrated, or as you feel helpless. So anger being that outward uncontrollable expression of something. So your emotions are incredibly informative, and you don't need to be scared of them, but pay attention to them.
Yeah, they're telling you something.
So I see something in the gym fairly often. Let's go for something very trite, because I think this is funny as well. And that is when somebody is trying to learn how to skip and they keep tripping. And in anger, they throw down their skipping rope and walk out in a little tantrum. Now, what is that actually though? Like, because this is a very good microscopic look
Yes.
at what we're talking about. They become angry in that moment that they cannot do something. But are they actually angry? They're frustrated.
Yeah.
Maybe they're embarrassed. Maybe they feel awkward. Maybe they feel like they should be performing at a higher level than what they are, and they're worried about what other people think of them. Now, if their self-esteem was in a really good place, they're just going to trip. That's all.
Yeah. Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean anything. They're just going to trip a bunch of times. In fact, they might even find it funny because they're like, why can I not get this? Rather than thinking that it means something else and it coming out as an expression of anger.
Yeah. I believe anger, what you're describing there, anger meaning actually other emotions like frustration, embarrassment. I believe what they call that is like gateway emotion or like a vessel emotion when you think anger is emotion, but it's not actually, it's other things. I believe that's what the technical term is.
I want that to be true. I've not heard that, so I like that. So hopefully that, now you don't need to walk away from listening to this going, I've got it, I've nailed it. This takes most people quite a lot of practice. Paying attention to their emotions, looking in the mirror, looking at the reaction when they're trying to learn something and they can't do it immediately. Are they getting angry? Are they getting frustrated? Are they sad? And then paying attention to what might be behind that. And it just takes a little pause for thought. A little pause for thought to go, is this raw emotion everything, or is there something else behind it?
Yeah. Always digging that bit deeper.
Yeah. And in turn, you'll find that actually leads into a much, much nicer world to be part of, where you'll then understand the emotions of other people better as well, and their frustrations and their anger. And then if we all could do this, imagine how much happier we would all be.
We'll be skipping around all the hands.
Honestly, it's the answer. It is actually the answer to everything, is understanding your emotions.
And it starts with yourself.
Yeah.
You can't extend that understanding to other people if you can't yet do it for yourself. You begin there.
So,
I think a point I would like to touch on
go for it.
when we were discussing at the start, and do you like yourself? Do you like who you are? I think that can come across in really subtle ways. So there'll probably be people at home thinking, yeah, like I like myself. Like, what do you even mean? It can come across in ways that are like, oh, I'm so stupid, or I'm just an arsehole, or I'm just not that nice. And it can be jokingly sometimes, but watch out for those things.
Absolutely.
And then also, why do you think that about yourself? And I think it actually ties into values and how you carry yourself through the world. And if you don't have values, you are so much more prone to doing things where you would feel afterwards, oh, I was an arsehole actually, or that was stupid of me. But you need things in place that when you're looking in the mirror, you're not thinking, I am stupid. And yet you know, because you've got certain values, that you are a good person.
Give us a idea of what those values might be.
To wake up every day and treat people as nice as you can. And I don't mean be nice to people that are being like total arseholes to you. Okay, that's different discussion.
Definitely is, because I would probably.
I know you would, that's why I said that. You wake up every day and you try your best to be a good person. Okay, it doesn't happen all the time, right? But we try our best. That's your intention. So you're not trying to be mean to people for no reason. You're not treating people terribly. Because do you know what? When you treat people badly, you feel shit. You look in the mirror and then you feel terrible about yourself.
And of course, treating somebody badly is an expression of how you feel about yourself in the first place.
Yes. So it's hard to have great self-esteem that we're talking about, and that confidence, when you act in ways that is like counterintuitive to that. You know, it's the opposite. Having good self-esteem and good confidence first starts with choosing to act like that. Choosing, you can decide what they are for yourself, but I wake up and I know I'm trying to be a good person, not always a good person, right? But I try. So I'm not going to look in the mirror and not like myself, because despite what I see, my values are good and I'm trying. And that's where I believe self-esteem begins. You need to wake up and decide who you are, what matters, what you're trying to be, and that in turn stops you from feeling like a terrible person. Values help you guide through life and decide at each moment how you're going to act. Are you going to act like a good person at that moment, or are you going to act like a bad person? That's where you need to start though. If you want better self-esteem, better self-confidence, you need to begin there.
Interestingly, in the 30-day challenge that we've got on the website, one of the first tasks that I ask people to do is, on day one, I ask them to come up with 5 words to describe themselves as they are now. And then I think it's day 3, I ask them to come up with 5 words to describe who they want to be.
Yeah.
And I ask them to write those words out on a post-it note and put it somewhere that they can see it all the time. So that they can see themselves change from who they are now. And the who you are now is very much not the who you want to believe you are, but the raw truth, who you actually think of yourself as. What language do you use to describe yourself? I'll come back to that in a second. And then the who you want to be can be wild. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can be a complete contrast. If you are shy and unsure, you could put like absolute confidence, want to be a public speaker. Because you can bridge that gap. You can make that journey. Everybody can make that journey. One of the first things that you need to know is what you're aiming for. So if you're not where you want to be at the moment, if you are avoiding looking at yourself in the mirror, if you are using very negative language to describe yourself, just know that you can change that. You are not stuck. Is it easy? It'll be a different journey for everybody. Some people, it'll just be like that, they'll get it and they'll start doing the work. But the result doesn't happen without the work. So I think one of the easiest tools to use is paying attention to the language that you use in your head and that comes out of your mouth. So negative languaging. It's easy to understand. It's not super easy to execute. So it takes a little bit of retrospective look at your day. So you might think that the thoughts that happen in your head just happen by magic, but they're not. I think I've said before, like something like, it's a ridiculously high percentage, like 95, 96% of what we do in a day is habit. Meaning, we don't give it conscious thought, we do it without thinking. Now, if you're not thinking about the words that come out of your mouth or the thoughts that go on in your head, then that just gets compounded and it becomes habits. So you're never challenging those habits in order to be able to change. So say you use very negative language to describe yourself when you look in the mirror, you're not saying it out loud, you're just thinking it in your head, and you could accidentally think that that doesn't matter because it's not coming out of your mouth. You can practice combating that, countering it. You can practice looking at yourself and thinking, damn, I look good. Check me. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You know, my life's getting better. You know, I'm doing all right. And you can look out for the negative language that doesn't serve you. It might be as easy or easier for some people to pay attention to the words that come out of your mouth because they have a more tangible reaction within the world. So if I was to sit here and say to you, you know, hate who I am, I hate what I'm wearing, I hate my body. So it feels so difficult to say those things. I would see your reaction to my words, and your reaction would help inform me of what that language means. So some people will find it easier to pay attention to the words that come out of their mouth rather than the thoughts that go on in their head. But as time goes by, you'll get better at paying attention to both and turning your negatives into positives. And I heard of a fun challenge. It's a very difficult challenge, but I heard of this challenge recently that I really enjoyed the idea of it. And that is to have 7 days of only positive thoughts. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And anytime you have a negative thought, you go back to the start again and you start your 7 days over. And you keep doing it until you have a full 7 days of positive thoughts. And guess what? After those 7 days, you probably don't need to worry about it so much. Because you've probably now done it for 6 months.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think that's a good thing to point out though, is it is really hard. And you don't just wake up and decide, I'm just going to think positive thoughts, because it's such a ingrained habit in yourself. You need to be so consciously aware of trying, and you'll get better the more you practice it. But don't be discouraged if you catch yourself being negative.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, don't be. Because that's part of the journey, is first becoming aware and becoming conscious of those negative thoughts.
Also, it's worth mentioning that you're going to be the exception. You're going to be different from other people for being positive. Which means that what you're seeing round about you and experiencing all the time is other people being negative. How often, think about it, how often do you meet somebody that's truly positive about themselves, about other people, about their life, about situations, where they always automatically look for the optimistic, positive viewpoint? Like, really, how many people do you know like that? Which means you, if you wish to change, have to really stand out and be willing to be different.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to not just mirror back out what comes at you.
It's hard.
Yeah, like
really
you've got
hard.
to be really self-aware.
Imagine being in your group of friends and they're all talking and they're all gossiping, and for you to turn around and be like, no, actually, no, I disagree. It takes a lot. It takes real conscious
and then to
effort.
do it also in a way that's kind to them
as well.
So that you're not sending them away thinking they're terrible people. So you're trying to nurture your own positivity, but you can't do that if you're then bringing somebody else down.
Yes, it's a good point.
Which, mental gymnastics.
It's hard. It's really hard. It's also worth noting that you have to choose to do these things. They don't happen by accident. You don't accidentally wake up thinking better, positive thoughts. You have to consciously decide, put the effort in. The same with your self-esteem, with your values. You have to decide consciously and purposefully the type of person you want to be, what you value, what you think is important, the thoughts you want to have. You have to purposefully choose to do it.
One of my favourite tools for myself, and I've handed this over to a lot of other people over the years, is the simple phrase, how does that serve me? So let's go back to the mirror. When you're looking in the mirror and you're having those negative thoughts about yourself, how you look, ask yourself, how does that thought serve me? Does that thought make my life better? Does that send me into my day in a better place? Does that thought only serve to bring me down, keep me small, keep me unseen, keep me unheard, and keep me invisible and insignificant? How does that serve me? You can use it everywhere, all the time, and it will massively help you. So in another extreme, that's a very tangible situation for people. You're driving in your car and somebody cuts in front of you, and you're on your own in your car and you get angry and you're shouting at the person and you're getting yourself all worked up and you go on through your day, angry, telling people about it. You literally go and you start telling people at your work about it, and they're angry for you, with you also. And yet you could have completely changed that situation. Go back to the person cutting in front of you, you feel the anger boil up, and you go, hang on a minute, how does that anger serve me? Because the person in the car is gone. They're away, they don't even know that they cut you up.
Yeah.
They're away getting on with their day. They can't hear your anger, you're not expressing your anger to anybody in that car other than yourself. And then you're moving on into your day and you're giving that anger to other people. Let's go back and ask yourself, how did that serve you?
It's a reminder as well that you are not your thoughts. You then get to decide. Your example of when you're looking in the mirror and you think, well, I look like a slob today. How does that serve you? It doesn't. It has no practical, purposeful influence on your life. And even if you don't think, it can be the same person looking in the mirror and you can still look the exact same, but it just serves you more to believe that you look fine and you look good, even if that's not true. What have you lost from doing that? You've lost nothing. That. So when we say, how does it serve you? It doesn't need to be true or true to you.
You'll be surprised how quickly it becomes true to you as well. You know, and it's not quite, I sometimes say to people, it's fake it till you make it, but it's kind of not. It's like practice.
Practice that. It's
practice. You're practicing getting rid of these old habitual thoughts and patterns, these old behaviours. 90% of your everything that you do in a day is habit. You're getting rid of those old habits of degrading yourself, self-deprecating, and you're moving into new habits of seeing yourself in a more positive light. And as you create those new habits, you have to think about them less. They become natural. They make up part of that 90% in your day, where you walk past the mirror and you're like, cool.
Yeah, cool. That is it, cool.
You know, somebody puts a camera on you and you're like, you know, and you have no emotional attachment or no negative emotional attachment to your physicality, how you look to the external world. The funny thing is as you walk around your day, you can't see how you look.
Exactly, it's so irrelevant.
It's so irrelevant.
Yeah.
I love this conversation. I think it's a conversation that has to happen a lot, and it covers so many facets of your life and outcomes of your life. It really covers how your life turns out, because once you start to appreciate fully the power of how you think and how you talk, paying attention to how you feel and what that really means, it's amazing how much you can identify where that affects different parts of your life, and how much fear plays big parts in your life and stopping you from doing things. But so much of that fear is attached to those negative thoughts and that negative language, and a lot of that fear actually just goes away when you don't have a habitually low opinion of yourself. Turns out that you can move through the world in a much easier way and on a much more even platform with all other humans. So humans fall into a natural look for hierarchy, look for our place. And if you've got very low self-esteem and a low opinion of yourself, you're going to feel like you're much further down the hierarchy. The hierarchy doesn't really exist, by the way, but we think it does. It sort of does because we think it does, but it doesn't need to. When you've got a better opinion of yourself, you start to move up that hierarchy, and you feel like you're more on an even playing field with other people. You don't feel like you're subservient, that you're submissive to other people. You have as much of a good place in the world as they do, as much of a right in the world as they do.
Yes.
And you don't hide, and you don't make yourself small, and you don't allow yourself to be insignificant, because that's no longer how you see yourself.
Yeah. When you think that you sit low on that hierarchy, what you're saying is other people are more important. Other people's opinions are more important. They have more value than me. They're better than me. So when you move up that hierarchy, these people are no longer on pedestals. They just are other people, just
other
the
people.
same as you.
Yeah. It's really powerful, because it'll change how you view where you belong in the work environment,
The treatment you put up with,
your expectations of relationships,
Yes.
work, where you live, what you do with your time, right down to how you feed yourself and how well you keep yourself in terms of like health and exercise. You know, so many people. I remember many years ago going shopping with a friend of mine, and she had always dressed in a sort of, I say tomboyish way, but it was more like a don't see me sort of a way.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went shopping with her. We were going on some sort of night out, and I held up a few items of clothing, and I'm like, oh my god, this would look great on you. Go and try this on. You'd look so good in this. And she said to me afterwards, she tried a bunch of stuff on and she loved it, and it was a really fun day. And she said to me afterwards, after she had a bit of time to think about it, that she had never looked at clothes like that before, because she didn't think they were for her. She thought they were for other people. It's kind of heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of heartbreaking, because I wonder how many people experience that. You know, and she had such fun that day, expressing her physicality in a different way and seeing herself in a different way. And she said she felt amazing. And she got to view her world and her existence in the world in a different light. And that she thought to herself that other people had the right to that image, that look.
She didn't. Yeah. So they were higher up that hierarchy.
And I think that's just a small example of how that emanates for people. But when you start looking for it, you'll see it everywhere. Other people are not better than you. You're not better than them.
No, just is.
Which is why I say the hierarchy exists, and it doesn't. It doesn't. It exists because we make it so. But it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it doesn't need to.
It really doesn't. See if everybody. I actually wonder what that world would look like. Somebody should make a movie of this or write a book on this someday. What would the world look like if everybody had great self-esteem? If everybody really understood their emotions? If everybody was kind to themselves and other people? If they felt secure in themselves? Because then we wouldn't try and be cruel to other people. So that would go.
Yeah.
We would be highly sensitive to how we expressed ourselves and how that affected ourselves and affected other people. Now imagine everybody behaved like that. Everybody thought like that. No one would be a bully.
No, there'd be no comments under your Instagram post.
Maybe Instagram would be dead.
Yeah.
Maybe it wouldn't exist.
Yeah. That's so funny.
You know? What would that existence be like?
I know.
Interesting.
Yes.
I'll dwell on that some. Maybe it would be boring. I can only think it would allow us to move forward into like a different way of existing and interacting. Be interesting. Yeah, that would be really interesting. So, have you got anything else that you would like to?
I think that covered why your thoughts matter so much, and how it all plays into self-esteem, and how you move through the world, and your values. Everything's all interconnected. Nothing's separate from one another.
What you believe you're capable of.
Yeah, it affects your whole life, and how you look, and how you feel, and how you let other people treat you. So important. And I think for anybody listening, if you want a better, happier, more fulfilled existence, you need to start with that level of self-awareness and
know that you can
that,
do it. Know that that is available to you.
Yeah.
Like this idea that like happiness and moving through the world with ease is for other people. Like I just want to remove that barrier. Like you don't just wake up one morning though and it's all sunshine and roses. It's a process, a process of practicing so that that 90 odd % becomes positive habits rather than negative habits. That you are self-aware enough to combat the negativity that might bounce at you through the day, and you're paying enough attention that you go, hang on, that doesn't serve me. I don't need to take that on board and use that to produce aspects of my own personality. I can choose who I want to be. I can choose how I think. I can choose how I feel.
Absolutely. And know that growth and change go hand in hand. So if you're unhappy with where you're at right now, if you want better, to grow in that sense, you have to make a change.
And don't be scared of it.
Make a change, so make a decision. It doesn't happen by accident. Whether it's a physical decision, a mental decision, make a decision to make a change, to start that growth.
Be okay with it. So many people don't change because they're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of moving into a life that they've not experienced before. So they're literally afraid of being positive and being happy because they know sadness. They know negativity. They know depression. They know fear. Those things are so familiar to them that they're comfortable with those things. They handle them every single day. That's how they live. That's who they are. So I would challenge people to recognize that fear of change and to know that there is a much better life for you.
And things do have to change.
And that fear of change is controlling you. And it's stopping you from having that amazing life. You can have it. You absolutely can have it. Everybody can have it.
I think it's a good place to end on.
I think so.
That's a nice positive note.
I think so. Okay, thank you for listening, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel on whichever platform you're listening on, and we will
see you in the next episode.
Bye for now.